And there it is. Welcome to our November monthly MATC Board of Directors meeting. Gwen, could I have you please take roll call for us?
Thank you. Director Baker.
Present.
Director Case.
Here.
Director Diaz.
Here.
Director Foley.
Here.
Director Hamilton.
Here.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Here.
Director Mays.
Here.
And Director Olson.
Here. Gwen, are we in compliance with the open meetings law?
Yes, Madam Chair, we are in compliance with the open meetings law.
Great, we will continue. So, Beth, did we receive any comments from the public?
No, we did not.
Okay, having none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting on October 26, 2021?
I move approval of the minutes.
I second. This is
So I have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Hamilton to approve the minutes.
Director Hamilton.
Director from October 26. Any discussion on those minutes? Then I will take a motion, a voice vote here to approve those minutes as they are presented to us. All those in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you for that. We will now move on to the approval of the consent agenda items. May I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I move approval of consent agenda.
Thank you, Director Baker.
Second, Director Case.
Is there any discussion or any items that would like either to be removed from that?
I do have one question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
On the HR report, there is the affirmative action pieces. And again, we are underutilized or underrepresented in the skilled craft space. As we talk about the AMP that we're going to review later, question around whether or not we have any plans to create an apprenticeship program for that space. I know that we have very few headcount and we don't necessarily have openings now, but when we think about retirements upcoming and our push as a college for apprenticeships, I think it might be something that we should consider if we have not already. So no need to answer right now, but if somebody could follow up, that would be great.
Okay, so Dr. Martin nodding her head, so I think we'll get a follow-up on that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, then it's been moved by Director Baker and seconded by Director Case for approval of the consent agenda items. We will take a voice vote. All those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. We are now moving into the board action items. And our first is a resolution F0207-11-21, which is authorizing the sale of the 1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, Series 2021-2022F of the Milwaukee Area Technical College District in Wisconsin. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the resolution. This is Director Foley.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Second,
Director
Mendieta Ramos.
Okay, thank you for that second. And I believe Mr. John Meehan is here.
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, everyone. I will walk through the sale results and the action that we took leading up to today. Hopefully the material is available as far as the handout. It's very similar to what we've talked about at past meetings. We conducted the bid opening this morning. It was an electronic bid opening for the $1.5 million note issue. At 9:30, we received 4 bidders. which, as you've seen from past sales, is pretty typical. There's a number of bidders. It's just a matter of who actually shows up. The winning bidder today was Collier's Security, and their true interest cost came in at a 0.7195. So rates continue to be low. I would say, though, that these are an uptick from last month. It's approximately an 0.05 higher than last month. And it's a little bit higher than the month before by about 15. So we're seeing a slow climb in some of the interest rates, not necessarily surprising, but still a low interest rate of 0.71. I would also mention that Colliers Security is a firm who's participated in the past. They're out of Minneapolis. They did not bid last month, but they did bid and win the Series D bonds. So we welcome them back in the bid process. BNY Mellon and Fidelity have also been bidders on past note issues of MATC. Next page. The notes themselves are going to be dated December 15th. That's when the funds will arrive at the college. The maturities are June 1, 2023 through 26, matches your existing principal payments. Our first interest payment will be June 1 of 22, and their funds included as part of your budget and a part of the debt service levy to make that payment. Because of their amortization so sharp, they're non-callable. The rating's confirmed at a AA1. We do have a copy of the report in the back of today's book. No change in any of the comments from what we've seen before. As I mentioned, Colliers Security is the winning bidder. As far as this issue, it's the halfway mark of the fiscal year sales. The next sale, which you're going to be considering the initial resolution on later on the agenda, will be for the Series G notes. But this sale, as far as the interest rates, came in at a 2.17. As you look at the page, the orange colored are all the final sales. The blues are the ones still to come. But the word average shows what the average coupon rates. And as you can see from left to right, we've had a slow climb up in some of the rates. Budget wise, we've been using 4%. Obviously ultra conservative on the rate, but that's okay because at some point, we've got the coverage and that's what's important. At the very back of the report, as I mentioned, we have a copy of the Moody's credit report. There is no change in language from the previous sale. I'll be happy at the direction of the chair to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Meehan?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Director Hamilton.
Yeah, can we get a just any indication on whether or not we're seeing any benefit from a rebound in the economy when it comes to the rates here? And are we beginning to, or have we even ever had a negative impact on how the market has been moving these last 6 or 7 months?
Thank you, Alderman. I would say that the rates really continue to be very low. We are seeing a slight uptick in the rates, but the fact that you're a AA1 credit, that you're a known name, that you are in the market every month, you'll be attractive to bidders. And also, frankly, there's a lack of supply that continues to be out there. So on the tax exempt side, there still continues to be strong demand. And the anticipation is there will be. It's a matter of what to compete with for other investment opportunities that people are bidding with. I would say that the budget, all the reconciliation bills have not included the return of tax exempt advance refundings, which will not affect you so much, MATC, as it will other issuers. To the negative, what the impact will be the positive, that people will continue to look for tax exempt product, and that's what you issue. But rates are, like I said, we're seeing a slight uptick, but historically speaking, we're just so low on rates.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Meehan? Okay, we did have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mendieta Ramos for Resolution F0207-11-21 that authorizes the sale of $1.5 million in general obligation promissory notes, Series 2021-2022 F. Gwen, can I have you please take a roll call vote?
Yes. Director Case,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos,
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
and Director Olson.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to item B, which is Resolution F0208-11-21, authorizing the issuance of $1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, Series 2021-2022 G of the Milwaukee Area Technical College District. Do I have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution. This is Director Foley.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Baker. There is a motion and a second. Is there any conversation, or Mr. Hollow, is there anything that you would like to share?
No, this is very typical.
Okay, seeing none then, I'm going to ask Gwen to take a roll call vote because we have a motion from Director Foley and a second from Director Baker for the issuance authorizing of F0208-11-21, $1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, Series 2021-2022 G. So Gwen, can you please take that roll call vote?
Sure. Director Diaz,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos,
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Case,
Aye.
and Director Olson.
Aye. Thank you. We're moving on to the policy review. This is a first.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Meehan. This is a first read of our policy. It will be brought forward to us again in December for approval. So I am going to call on Al Bonds to share with us this handbook policy update.
Okay, thank you, Chair Olson. Good evening, board members and others on the call. What we all know by now is that the pandemic really forced us to really take a look at the way we work. So I think it's safe to say that we were catapulted into a new way of operations in an environment that is really primarily remote in nature, which in many cases opened our eyes on the ability to foster innovation and establish new norms, something which may not have been afforded to us within higher ed in the past. So one thing that we quickly realized in higher education institutions, that we were able to continue providing quality service, meaningful services to students, while also being able to work in an environment that offer flexible work arrangements, flexible work options. Since this is something that we haven't been able to truly explore in the past at MATC, we partnered with Campus Works, that's one of the top higher ed consulting firms in the country, to assist us with the development of a policy and a framework for a sustainable model for flexible work more regularly in the future. So the policy that you have before you was created based upon multiple focus group sessions with stakeholders. We obtained valuable insights and feedback. We had staff and faculty focus groups. We had several sessions with students so that they could weigh in as well. And the overarching themes were employees and students were really grateful for being asked to weigh in on what they believe was a really important discussion. They were happy to be a part of the decision and a part of their feedback being used to create this policy. And then second, they really expressed the need to move forward with flexible work options as a tool and a strategy for recruiting and retaining talent within the institution. And then thirdly, there seemed to be a unified understanding amongst the attendees of the focus groups that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to flexible work options, and really understanding that not all positions are suitable for some of the options. For example, remote work, not all positions might be eligible. So the policy was created and the team met with the employee handbook committee to finalize the language for the handbook changes. And then second, we met with the cabinet to review the policy. All language was approved. So the team is now putting together the final touches on the actual procedure and then the training for both employees and leaders in preparation for an early spring launch. So that's just a high level overview of the process and intent for the policy and then the next steps. So I'll pause and take any questions if you have them. Oh my gosh, my camera was off this whole time. I didn't see that. My apologies, everyone.
It's okay.
Know that.
We just attributed it to technical difficulties, Al. We didn't take it personally.
Thank you. Thank you. Charge it to my computer. Yes.
I'm not seeing any questions right now. Thank you for the background and the participation of multiple stakeholders in gathering that to come up with this policy. So I think that that's always important to make sure that we're gathering multiple perspectives on that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Not seeing anybody else. This is a reminder, we're not taking a vote on it tonight. This will be brought back to us in December for approval. But if you do have questions, this allows Al or anybody else to look into something if that's not readily available to answer a question. So we are able to vote on it in December. So I'm not seeing any other hands or questions. I want to make sure I'm giving ample time. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So thank you, Al, for that presentation, and
Thank you. You're welcome.
back in December. Moving on to policy approval, which is policy E0104, faculty course credentialing. And Mohammed will be sharing with us that policy approval at this point if there are questions related to that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Director Olson. And I think Jennifer Smith presented last month, and we shared the policy with you, and both Jennifer and I will be more than happy to address any questions that you may have.
Not seeing any questions or hands based on the presentation that you did provide us last time. So we did have some background on that. I want to make sure I give enough time before I call for a vote. This will be a voice vote. So can I have a motion then to approve policy E0104 on the faculty course credentialing?
I move to approve the policy. This is Director Foley.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Director Case.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Case to approve policy E0104, and this will be a voice vote. So all those in favor of approving that policy E0104, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are ready to move on to our reports section. So first on that is our chairperson's report, which is me. So first I'd like to start off by reporting, and I'm very happy to do so, that our president, Dr. Martin, has been named as one of Milwaukee's Women of Distinction by Milwaukee Magazine. So on behalf of the entire board, congratulations to you, Dr. Martin, on a well-deserved recognition.
Thank you.
Director Baker attended the virtual Wisconsin Technical Colleges District Boards Association Fall Meeting and Legal Issues Seminar on October 28 and 29, shortly after our last monthly meeting. And the focus of that was some legal issues facing the Wisconsin Technical Colleges. So Director Baker, do you have any comments regarding that meeting?
Sorry, I was working at trying to get my little applause guys out of there. No, it was interesting. I think most of it is probably stuff that my colleagues are very accustomed to. You know, I followed the board member track. And, you know, it was things about, you know, understanding how we function, understanding our role and the administration's role, you know, a number of those kinds of things. It was, presentations were good, a tad dry, but, you know, so goes Zoom when you have lawyers talking to us. Sorry, Janice Falkenberg. But otherwise, it was informative. Oh yeah, sorry, Director Foley. Anybody else I just insulted, but informative, and I'm glad I attended. Thank you.
Thank you for attending on behalf of our board for that. Next month, there are several events that board members may consider attending. On Tuesday, December 14th at 7 p.m. It's the Winter Nurses Pinning, and it's in the Cooley Auditorium. So it does follow our board meeting. Our board meeting next month is early. So please note that a little bit, and that will be scheduled right now to be held in person. So you could, if our board meeting finished in time, you could attend that also. On Thursday, December 16th, then at 6 p.m. is our GED HSED graduation, and that is also being held in Cooley Auditorium. And then that Friday, so a busy week if you attended everything, on December 17th is at 6 p.m. is the winter commencement, and that's being held at Pfizer Forum. And you should have replied to Gwen by now if you are attending, so they can plan for that. So lots of activity on that week specifically. So hopefully we can have somebody at each of those events coming up for a good representation of the board. The Wisconsin Technical College District Board Association Winter Quarterly Meeting will be held January 27th through the 29th, 2022. I think maybe that's the first time I've announced something in that year. And that's hosted by Lakeshore Technical College. And it will be at the Osthoff Resort in Elkhart Lake. So please let Gwen know if you plan on attending it, and she will be glad to register you. So you might want to look ahead after the holidays, the end of January. So take a look at that, and please let Gwen know if you are interested in attending. Also in January, we had talked about holding 3 retreats this year. We held our first one on facility. We talked about holding a winter board retreat, some possible topics that we may want to consider for that. And I'd like to reach out to board members following this meeting. Could be student retention and completion data, dig in a little bit to that, dual enrollment, and then some possible board development as a whole, how we function. Director Baker just talked about going to some of those sessions there. So those are just some possible topics that have come up over time and that people have showed an interest in digging into a little bit more than we can in a board meeting, having some conversations around those. So think about those topics or other ones that you think that would be helpful for you as a board member to dig into and really learn a little bit more deeply. So we could have that working knowledge and really be able to function with some information that maybe we don't have time in a regular board meeting to attend to, or get some of those questions answered in a little bit more back and forth format. So we also plan to look at the revised board self-evaluation. I announced last month that I had met with staff to look at that, to try to align that a little better. It hadn't been looked at in a major way as we look at some of the higher ed, the Higher Learning Commission, and how that aligns with that work and what we are and are able to do with that self-evaluation tool. So you will be getting a doodle poll from Beth that will ask for your availability. So if you could please complete that right away so we could get that date set. The longer it takes us to secure it, people's calendars start changing, and then it makes it we have to start all over again. So when you get that from Beth, please fill in your availability on the dates that she provides. And then lastly, I guess just during this Thanksgiving season, I would really want to thank the board members, the faculty and the staff for your commitment throughout the year to the college and its students. At this point, we are planning on being back in person in December, but we will keep you updated on that status as time moves closer. So that's all I have. Next on our agenda then is the President's report with Dr. Martin.
Well, good evening, Chair Olson, board members, faculty, staff, community. I'll just update you on a few things since we met last time. I did mention the last time we met that we have an HVAC lab at MPS's Obama High School. There was an official ribbon cutting ceremony on October 27th. As you may recall, this new lab is a joint effort with, of course, MPS, MATC, and Johnson Controls. Johnson Controls gave us a generous equipment donation that allows the students to train with the latest high-tech tools and equipment, and also includes the hiring of a success coach, really dedicated both to Obama High School students as well as our MATC students who will also be able to use the lab in a community setting. But those Obama High School students, those are dual enrollment credits. We teach the courses, and they're able to secure 16 college credits. I want to thank Laura Bray again, David Polk, and Jonathan Feld, as well as their teams. We also received recognition from the educational company called EAB, which named MATC Carthage College, the University of Wisconsin Parkside, and the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee as winners of its National Connectedness Award, which really recognizes schools that build relationships around institution types, connecting community colleges, four-year schools, and the broader higher ed community to forge connections in strategic and innovative ways to benefit students, regardless of their institution. So on behalf of MATC, very grateful to receive this. It's really centered around our Moonshot for Equity work. On November 5th, I attended the Biz Times Nonprofit Excellence Awards in support of MATC's recognition as a finalist for the Nonprofit Collaboration Award. I want to thank our Vice President of Retention, Dr. Jeff Jans, and the Director of Advising, Janae Alston, for collaborating with Kelly Tsai, who's the Executive Director of College Possible, to make this partnership so strong. This new partnership provides support for our student scholars from lower income households and ensures that more first-year students receive academic advising, financial planning, and career pathway retention services throughout their time at MATC. College Possible has been a great partner with us, and so it was really an honor to be part of this ceremony. During the week of November 8th, MATC's Achieving the Dream coaches virtually visited the college to assess the progress of our team's work and provide coaching where needed. I'd like to thank Dr. Christine Mannion for her work with the coaches and the work of our teams who impressed our coaches with their passion and their focus on this important work around student success. On November 11th, I joined MPS Superintendent Dr. Keith Posley, UWM Chancellor Dr. Mark Money, and Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce President Tim Sheehy for a webinar focused on how M-Cubed is both lifting up the individual students we serve and helping to build the diverse talent pipeline for our regional needs. It was well attended, great questions as well. And to help celebrate National Apprenticeship Week, MATC had the honor of hosting our governor, Tony Evers, at Walker Square on November 12th. Governor Evers visited labs and classrooms for MATC's appliance repair, bricklaying, and construction trade programs. It was really great. He talked to each of the students, asked them about their career pathway. The one I got to overhear was one of our female bricklaying students who said she was in pharmacy tech for about 8 to 10 years, decided she didn't want to do that anymore, and just looked in our catalog and looked up all the different programs and decided that she would do bricklaying. And she was building a wall when we were there. It was really great. Thanks to David Polk, who you're going to hear from a little bit later, Annette Velez and Carly Tatum for helping to arrange this tour. We also were spotlighted again at our Oak Creek campus on November 17th The Wisconsin State Apprenticeship Advisory Council held their quarterly meeting at our eCamp Center on the Oak Creek campus. And I had the pleasure of welcoming the Department of Workforce Development Secretary Designee as 19 members of the Advisory Council to the campus. This concludes my report, and I too wish you all a healthy and a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Is our student representative on? I did not see him. Is Fong on?
I don't see the person on the line. Eric Zimetz, I see you're on the line. Will the student representative be joining us this evening?
Yeah, he's supposed to be joining us this evening. I think I'm trying to get a hold of him right now to see where he's at. So he might have thought from the agenda that he had to be on later. So as soon as I will let you know if I hear from him.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll continue to move on. And then,
Chair.
yes?
Well, I was just going to buy some time while you were attempting to do that, just to make a comment on the president's report. Just because Obama is in my district, and I'm very familiar with the facilities and the location that was being used by MATC, and just been encouraging. I know I've been at least pushing. I don't want to use the word critical. Of building these community partnerships and taking advantage of the infrastructure that exists in the city of Milwaukee, especially when it comes to some of our high schools. Being able to do that with the Obama location and having MATC, make use of that partnership and the students at MATC being able to do that, I think is real important for us to kind of demonstrate the level of partnership that that can happen with these facilities. I was just recently there, just a couple days ago, and just witnessed some of the challenges that MPS is having at that location by itself. But I think if people saw what the options were with the gyms that exist in our communities and MATC being able to lift that up, and allow folks that are living in communities that may be challenged to see these assets in the community and seeing the pathway that they can have to MATC. This is a huge plus. So I just wanted to give kudos to the president for that and highlighting it because it's happening right in the heart of the district, it's happening right in the heart of the city, and providing opportunities for people who may not know and have an opportunity to take advantage of all the things that MATC have to offer. But that partnership, I think, is something that we should continue to highlight and talk about. So just wanted to say thanks to the president for making those things happen.
Thanks, Director Hamilton. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for providing us some more context and detail with that and your personal experience. So that's much appreciated.
President Olson, if I could make a comment, as President Martin is aware, I'm very familiar with that program, and that there has been an HVAC program at that school and a partnership with Johnson Controls for years. But I think the missing secret sauce was MATC. It was a well-equipped program 10, 15 years ago. But I think the upgrading and the intensity of this very specific effort and partnership, I think, is what will really make a difference there. So I'm ecstatic to see this. There are a lot of career programs in Milwaukee Public Schools that have, sort of struggled, occasionally languished, occasionally, just totally bloomed. But I do think that MATC's role in this is what is going to help propel this forward. So this is really great news.
Thank you, Director Baker. And I know David Polk is out there with his vision, doing a little happy dance right now. And I'm sure he's excited later to present more on apprenticeships, but he was certainly a catalyst behind this. Laura Bray and her team, so many people to thank, and you're right, it's just a game changer for our community and for our partnerships. So thanks.
I will move on to our DEI reports, and then Beth or someone, if you could flag me down if our student joins us.
They have.
There you go. So
just waiting for the camera to go on, then I will spotlight them.
Okay, am I next?
We're actually, our student joined us.
Oh, okay.
Eva, so yeah, but you are next after that. So you are
Okay.
on deck.
Thank you.
Fong, would you like to begin your report?
Hi, yes. Hi everyone, sorry I'm late. I'm just in a rush for something. Hi, my name is Fong and I'm Fong Wing. And thank you everyone for waiting for me, and thank you Dr. Vicky Martin, member of the MATC District Board and Administration. And I am happy to be here today to represent district student government and the student body. My name is Fong Wing. I'm the West Allis student studying liberal art, and I'm the president of West Allis Student Government Association. As we approach at the end of the semester, MATC Student Life is doing a great job with creating event and connecting with more with students. Students are seeing more of their heritage and culture reflect in their event that's are happening. For example, this month is Native American Heritage Month, and Student Life and SGA provide a lot of information to students about Native American culture and history. I continue to look forward to seeing more students towards the end of the semester and the springtime. I'm excited for the holiday season since Student Life and SGA has the opportunity to celebrate our students in festive way. At West Allis, we are working on an end of the semester holiday event with gifts for students. I also want to thank MATC for incentivizing the report of student vaccination information. I think the campus cache and drawing for items really help the student to report their vaccination, and also help the student life a little bit better. I hope the information is useful and for health and safety planning. Lastly, I am thankful for everyone at MATC who have made campus feel like second home. I'd like to thank you for this time to speak with you and look forward to future conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fong. And we are ahead of schedule, so it wasn't necessarily that you were off on time. We were just a little bit ahead, so that's on us.
Oh no, thank you so much.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you.
So next we will move into our diversity, equity, and inclusion report by Eva Martinez-Paula. So she is up, and there she is, spotlighted.
Yes, thank you so much, Director Olson, and good evening, everyone. And again, thanks for giving me the space to share with you some of the updates related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. As we all know, sustaining our practice of equity and inclusion across the college at MATC entails having different approaches, and also approaches within different locations and our campuses. Some of the areas that I've been working on include working directly within our own employee affinity groups. As of today, we have 7 affinity groups and 2 applications waiting for 2 additional employee affinity groups. We began the year by welcoming our affinity groups along with Dr. Martin, and we will be wrapping up this semester with an affinity group leadership retreat, where we will discuss how our affinity group co-leads can become equity brokers and also champions for inclusion. It is very important that we do not only have affinity groups at MATC and representation, but that we also build and develop those groups to become champions for inclusion. So for example, I will be working directly with the co-leads sometime in December to be able to identify ways that they can engage within our campus community and also within our student populations to create and sustain a culture of inclusion at MATC. So we are very happy to have these groups. And as I counted a couple of days ago, we have a total of about 120 engaged employees that are participating in our affinity groups, and the list continues to grow. So we are very thankful for them. In addition to that, I continue to support our different locations at MATC. For example, when it comes to sustaining and creating a campus of inclusion where everyone feels included and welcomed, I have been providing guidance and support to the Oak Creek Climate Committee and also the West Dallas newly created DEI Council. These 2 committees are DEI focused, very focused on inclusion and equity, and they are working together to improve the culture at their respective locations and also identify and create opportunities for engagement and inclusive programming and practices. I am also happy to report that as our community is opening up for different events, I have attended several events in the community along with some of my cabinet peers and Dr. Martin to be able to connect and also support our nonprofit organizations in the Milwaukee community. I also continue to work directly with our President's Task Force Community Advisory Committee, which has been very helpful in not only helping me understand the perceptions of MATC in the Milwaukee area and the greater Milwaukee area, but also appreciating the input and advice and feedback that they may have for me as DEI officer at MATC, and the feedback coming directly from the community, directly from community members. Another update that I would like to share with you is that the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion continues to support student success efforts at MATC. For example, during the month of September and October, the office supported the Latinx Unidos student organization during Hispanic Heritage Month. They sponsored over 30 events for the MATC community, and they were very successful in accomplishing their goals. The office not only sponsored them financially, but I was also able to participate in some of the programming and support students directly. Upcoming is the collaboration between the office and Black Student Union, and we have begun a conversation about planning around Black History Month, which is coming up in a couple of months. As co-chair of the Moonshot for Equity Retention Grants Committee, along with Dr. Jennifer Milkeley, we have awarded and worked together with the team. We have awarded 1,500 students a small grant that is intended to support student retention and student success. We are very happy for this grant for MATC students, and our goal is to be able to track the cohort of students to be able to understand the impact on retention and the impact on success, student success. I am also looking forward to working with the Office of University Advancement and others at MATC, including the MATC Foundation, to grow our DACA Plus scholarship for undocumented students. I continue to partner across the college on committees such as the Student Success Oversight Committee and Retention Pillar Assessment Committee to continue to have the DEI lens in our student success efforts. As the year wraps up, you can expect additional information on upcoming recommendations related to a college-wide DEI plan, which will be aligned directly with the task force recommendations. These were some of my updates. Thank you so much for giving me this time, and I am happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Do any of the board members have any questions? I think you were very comprehensive in your report that we have no questions for you tonight.
Thank you, Director Olson.
Thank you very much and happy Thanksgiving.
Same.
We are now ready to move on to our enrollment report, and this will be presented by Nicole Tanner.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight. Got this, there we are. Let me pull up my notes. The current slide presented here provides a snapshot of our year-to-date FTEs. We closed out the summer at 85.1% of achieved goal, the fall term at 83.5%, and we're currently at 34.9% of achieved goal for the upcoming spring term. As of today, we are at 63.5 of the total budgeted goal of 8,800, leaving us about 3,212 FTEs to go. Next slide. The student view provides enrollment data on our continuing new and returning students. And as you can see, the numbers are up in each category. Continuing students are up by 358, new students 93, and our returning students are up by 149. That was my quick report. If there aren't any questions, that is the end of the report. And thank you and happy holidays. Well, Thanksgiving.
Any questions on the enrollment or the information that was presented? Thank you. I did want to mention to the board that I've been working with Beth a little bit to try to talk about when we get these reports that are standard to be able to look at them from month to month. So we have a comparison so we don't have to go back to previous meetings to try to say that. So we get some of that comparative data, but it would be helpful to have it there as we move along and sort of continue to build that data piece around us, and we can see it more live rather than in isolation. So that's a project that we are continuing to work on. We are ready for the Milwaukee PBS General Manager's Report by Bodan Zachary.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Olson, MATC Board Directors, Dr. Martin, faculty, staff, and public. I'll start this afternoon with a report on the broadcast premiere and the impact of Milwaukee PBS's new hour-long documentary, America's Dairyland at the Crossroads. Last Tuesday, producer Marian Lazarski and Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reporter Rick Barrett were the featured speakers at the Rotary Club of Milwaukee launch event. The film then premiered Thursday night on Milwaukee PBS, and it's also streaming globally on the USA Today Gannett Milwaukee Journal Sentinel newspaper website. That's terrific exposure. And here's something brand new. This evening, the documentary will air in its entirety and uninterrupted on the commercial station WSAW in Wausau. This is a substantial validation of the work that has been 2 years in production. Lastly, on the note of our documentary, the PBS NewsHour has contacted the producers and has asked for a 5-minute story out of our documentary that will air nationally on PBS NewsHour. On the topic of Milwaukee PBS's budget, I'm happy to report that as of October 31st, Milwaukee PBS fundraising efforts have raised over $1.8 million. That's 30% toward our FY22 goal. Upcoming calendar year-end giving efforts over the next 6 weeks will draw significant funding from individuals in the community through Giving Tuesday, major donor giving patterns, foundations and grants, and the upcoming December pledge drive, which begins on Thanksgiving Day. The 2021 December pledge drive has a goal of $300,000, bringing new, sustaining, and returning members to Milwaukee PBS. The MATC television and video production students have produced yet another new group of shows called Letters to Santa that will air in the week leading up to to Christmas several times during that week. And finally, the MATC commencement ceremony next month will air on Milwaukee PBS December 26th at 11 a.m. This concludes my report for this month. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you. How exciting to have a clip on the national PBS News on that documentary. I'll have to take a look at that.
Thank you.
All right, we are ready to move on to our board monitoring part of the agenda. And we will be starting out with a pathway presentation on apprenticeships. I think Dr. Martin has given us a little preview about this, and David Polk wanting to share with that. So we get to hear that directly from him at this time. So Dr. Dakwa, I think we'll be introducing him at this point.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chair Olson. It is my pleasure to introduce David Polk. David is the Director of Apprenticeship, and he's going to be presenting. He is truly awesome. We have a number of key highlights. You may ask any questions during the presentation. Otherwise, we'll take Q&A at the end. So, David.
Thank you, MATC Board, MATC Administration, and colleagues. My name is David Polk. I'm Director of Apprenticeship for the MATC District. I'm looking to share my screen. There we go. So our apprenticeship team is made up just of myself, 2 administrative assistants, and my records keeper. So we're a very slim team, but very effective in our work. Can everyone can see my presentation, right? Thank you.
Yes.
For those that aren't familiar with apprenticeship is a secondary education training modality that is made up of 70 to 90% of on-the-job training, on-the-job mentoring, and anywhere from 10 to 30% of classroom education. And that classroom education is MATC's role in apprenticeship. I'm not going to overview the entire history of the college, but MATC and the technical college system's start was actually in apprenticeship, to support apprenticeship and also to support trades education for our residents here in the city. We currently are offering 31 different apprenticeships. Some of the apprenticeships you see on the screen will be new, coming in the spring semester. I'm really excited for the medical lab technician apprenticeship, because that was one that that Director Mark Foley actually started the conversation on this one with a different request, but it turned into the medical lab technician apprenticeship. So that one I'm really excited about starting up next semester, and we'll be the first in the country to actually pilot that apprenticeship. So it's very exciting. These are our union apprenticeships, apprenticeship partners. When I speak to our union apprenticeship partners, these are all of the unions that send all of their apprentices to MATC for their classroom learning, or these unions actually house the classroom instruction at their facilities, but MATC instructors deliver that instruction. So I'm very appreciative of all of these union partnerships. They make up a very large portion of the apprentices that come through MATC. These are the number of apprentices and the FTE count. You can see prior to COVID, we were on the uptick. Almost every year we had an uptick of new apprentices. Our downtick here at the bottom for last academic year is due to, of course, COVID and the slowdown of hiring people in a lot of different industries. And we're still rebounding from that, but I think that the new apprenticeships that we're offering and the new modality that I'll speak to a little bit later is going to help that bring up the numbers of apprentices that we have. As you can see here, this is the makeup. We have a lot of work to do as far as getting female apprentices into apprenticeships or helping to navigate that. One of the things that we did that I'll speak to later was a Women in Apprenticeship event that was last Thursday during National Apprenticeship Week. We hosted, I think, 150 participants between our two events of all women. We had an all women focus group that talked to the participants, and we even invited back retired Dean Dorothy Walker to moderate our panel discussion. It was a wonderful discussion. We got rave reviews, and we're actually sending out recordings of that discussion. So here you see our racial makeup of our apprenticeships. And because apprenticeship starts with employment, it's tough for us to put apprentices into that role or make individuals apprentices. But what we do excel in is preparation for individuals to get into their respective apprenticeship. And that's what we focus on. There's a lot of new pre-apprenticeships, certified pre-apprenticeships that we're piloting, and also our partnership with youth apprenticeships that we're working on expanding to have the best prepared individuals for any industry to get into apprenticeship, to make sure that they are looking to MATC for the best prepared candidates. As Dr. Martin highlighted, this is a partnership that I'm really proud of. This pathway toward apprenticeship is actually how I got into my apprenticeship. Bringing trades curriculum down to the K-12 level, I think is going to be the future of building these trades back up. So what we do at Obama High School in the new lab in the partnership with Johnson Controls is we brought parts of our HVAC curriculum down to the high school level. The instructor that's in that classroom is an MATC employee. The students start their sophomore year and go through their senior year taking HVAC education. And the future for these young students is just magnificent. They will likely be some of the highest touted candidates coming into the HVAC industry that any employer can absolutely ask for. The future of this partnership is we want employers fighting over getting to the classroom at Obama High School to get these students as employees. That's what we want, that's what we excel in, and we want to push that down to the K-12 level. So some of the initiatives that we're doing, we want to grow the partnership at Obama High School. I'm really proud of that. We have a continued partnership with Northcott Community Center. We're not only going to be running our arborist certified pre-apprenticeship there, but we also will expand to a landscape installer pre-apprenticeship that is going to be landmark. There's nothing like it. So we want to continue that innovation. And also the expanding the new creative apprenticeship. So in the previous slide, you've seen the new apprenticeship initiatives that we have. The new creative way that we are delivering is that we're having apprentices in the same classrooms with our program students. This allows us to expand into new apprenticeships without having the college to stretch and have these very small cohorts when we pilot new apprenticeships. That's very rudimentary for apprenticeship. When we start new apprenticeships, the numbers are very, very low. When we combine them with the program students, there's not that strain. And also it provides apprentices a pathway post-apprenticeship where they can expand and pursue the diploma or the associate's degree that they were in the classroom with. So that allows them not only to complete the apprenticeship, but complete a technical diploma or an associate degree during their career. So we're very excited about that. That's actually a modality that the rest of the state is actually starting to follow. So that was piloted here at MATC, and the rest of the state is picking up on this and trying to do the same things. So just a few highlights before I end. We're the first in the country to do international freight forwarding. That's a one-year apprenticeship, brand new. We're really excited about that. As I said previously, the Med Lab technician, that's going to be one coming in the spring. I'm really excited about the arborist apprenticeship because it has shown just phenomenal growth in its 4-year lifetime. And I think that's partly due to our partnership at Northcott, where we're able to get individuals who would not normally know what an arborist does, much less connect with a tree care company. We're getting those individuals partnered with employers with this certified pre-apprenticeship program. And I think that's really helping to spread this apprenticeship. And that industry really took to apprenticeship as an entire industry. So that really helped with that expansion. As you see here, we reformatted the culinary apprenticeship in the modality that I spoke to earlier. And it was highlighted at the National Association of Healthcare Food Service Conference. Advocate Aurora has been a tremendous partner in apprenticeship, and they're expanding our modality across the nation. They've already taken it down to Chicago, and they've expanded it up north to their health facilities. So the modality that we are piloting here at MATC is not only getting statewide attention, it's getting national attention. I spoke to our Women in Apprenticeship forums that we had last week. It was spectacular turnout. I'm really thankful for all of those that participated. And our German apprenticeship partnership is one that we worked on last week during National Apprenticeship Week with Director Case. She's part of this. It's a spectacular partnership. This one started from education trip, an apprenticeship education trip that I had taken to Germany last February. And the German consulate came to MATC. They started with a visit to Harley Davidson, then they came to MATC so we can start this work. This is not only landmark for apprenticeship to partner with another country, but the modality that we're looking at will formalize testing for manufacturing trades. And hopefully this partnership will lead to an apprentice exchange with Germany. So this is landmark. This is not being done anywhere else in the state nor anywhere else in the country. So I'm really, really proud of that and expanding the MATC apprenticeship brand across the pond, so to speak. That concludes my my presentation. Thank you all very much, and I'm open to any questions.
So I have a question or two, if I could.
Absolutely.
And it's Mr. Polk, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Polk. You may not know, I'm actually a journeyman, and for a period of time ran the state apprenticeship program for the printers. So I'm excited to hear all of this work. I have just a couple of questions. My first is sort of a clarification, and I did have some conversation before the meeting to help me get clarified on a few things. When you talk about union apprenticeships, I assume those are joint apprenticeship committees. So those are labor management committees. It's just that there's a union involved, and that's why they're called union?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, great. Because I think the JAC is a great model. I think that I'm glad we're still there. So my two other questions, one is, the state of diversifying apprenticeship is one that has haunted the apprenticeship community for decades. I've been in countless meetings on the subject. So I'm wondering, are we still working with Big Step? Is Big Step still a force in this that's helping us in terms of recruiting diverse candidates into apprenticeship? And I know that there was a period of time when we had some very specific initiatives in the college for women in non-traditional careers. In fact, I worked in one of them once 1,000 years ago. So I'm wondering if we have very specific programming, not just, occasional events. So that's one question, and then I'll stop. My second question is what our relationship is with Bradley Tech, because that's a place that's also, there are several Milwaukee high schools as well as Obama that do programming in the trades, and Bradley Tech was always a big feeder for the trades. So I'll leave with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll start with your last portion because it's very near and dear to my heart. I'm a tech graduate. So that said, the Trojans are very near and dear to my heart. Actually, yes, we do have partnerships with Bradley Tech, and one of which is a heavy plate program that I'm working on with VP Laura Bray, and that program will pathway those tech students not only through our welding program, but pathway them into a post-welding credential that will make them even better touted candidates coming into the industry. The other thing with high school partnerships, and we have employers on the line, and I'll speak candidly, if employers can get a very well-trained 18 to 19-year-old that comes into the industry with education behind them, that is one of the most appetizing individuals for an employer for a couple of reasons. A, they haven't worked a lot before, so that employer can mold that individual into what they want to be as an employee. The other part of that is the apprenticeship process is one of the highest rates of retention of any secondary learning model. So that said, if you get a 18 or 19-year-old to come into an apprenticeship, they're likely going to stay in that career forever, if not with your company forever. So a lot of our partnerships at the K-12 level are to make those individuals the best prepared coming into that industry, so that those employers whom we've worked with, as you stated, who we've worked with on DEI concerns for not bringing in minorities and women, they can't say no because this individual is so prepared for this industry. And that's one of the strategies that got me into the industry that I'm in as a plumber. And it works. That process has gotten more minorities and women into these careers, probably more than any other process. The other thing, as you speak to with the JACs, some of the JACs that we work with are local, but some are statewide. So the sheet metal union that we work with, they're statewide, and they send apprentices to us from all across the state. So that those partnerships can vary in depth. But again, I'm very, very, very thankful for them. They've been awesome partners, not only in sending their apprentices to us, but also in all of our other initiatives that we do here at MATC.
Yeah, and the other piece was just Big Step and whether we have ongoing, do we have some ongoing for recruitment of females into the trade?
Yeah, absolutely. Big Step was a partner about 2 years ago. They did a full women cohort of what they call IMT. It's industrial maintenance manufacturing technician. I'm sorry. They did an entire cohort of women, and MATC in my department, we worked to deliver their pay-related instruction, their curriculum work at their company, so that it wouldn't be a strain on them having to get from their company to our MATC campuses. So they're definitely a wonderful partner of ours. If you know the new CEO, her last name is Bloomer, Lindsay Bloomer. She's the new CEO at WRTP Big Step. One of the things that she did within the first month, we had an hour and a half long call just to ensure our partnership and discuss even different creative ways that we can partner. Any other questions?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, David. Any other questions or comments for him?
Oh, and I'm sorry, I did want to speak to Director Case's question at the beginning of the program. What, if I'm not mistaken, that question was specific to HR?
No, it was specific to the HR report. So on the HR report, it speaks to the affirmative action, and it calls out that we are underutilized in both females and minorities in our employee skilled craft. And so my question was, are we looking at retirements, and are we planning apprenticeships to backfill those? I know that we have, not a whole lot of them on campus, but wondering if we've got anything in process or in the works to look at having apprenticeships of our own, since we're such a good sponsor and community member, feel like we can represent here. So that was my question.
Absolutely, and I'm very, very glad you asked that question. So one of the things that we've been working on for the past year was to onboard the facilities maintenance technician apprenticeship to offer here at MATC. And to be transparent with you, Director Case, it will be the first time in MATC's history that we would be able to hire on and train our own apprentices internally. I'd also had conversations with L Bonds regarding the HR assistant apprenticeship, which we would be the first in the state to run an HR assistant apprenticeship. But we talked about offering that internally also to help with some of her pain points in her department, and also to work as our own recruiting agent to bring on our students as apprentices working for the college. So that is definitely in the works. For the facilities maintenance technician apprenticeship, we're looking at a fall 22 start, and HR apprenticeship, we're still in discussions. But I appreciate that question.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, I do not see any other hands up. So thank you very much for that very comprehensive report. And we can definitely tell your enthusiasm for the program and for apprenticeship. So thank you.
Thank you all.
So I scrolled up too fast on my screen and I actually missed our legislative matters report. And so sorry about that. And so I apologize to Rami. Hopefully she's not been waiting on here too long. So we are going to jump back to item G. I think Beth was trying to let me know, but she was muted. So dancing up and down or whatever that might take sometimes if I skip an item. So we're going to move back to the legislative matters report with Rami Zalankowski.
Thank you, Director Olson. Good evening, everyone. I will be brief. I submitted a report to you, which of course needs to be amended verbally this evening. There have been some updates to the written report. So I'm going to provide three primary updates for you this evening. First, redistricting. The governor did veto the redistricting bills that were sent to him last week. So that's going to set up the court redistricting court case process. The Supreme Court could release an opinion on a number of questions as early as next week. So just a very brief update there. Ultimately, the expectation is the court will end up drawing the maps. At the federal level, as we know, President Biden signed the infrastructure package. There's still ongoing negotiations for the Build Back Better legislation. The House passed their version of the legislation late last week. It includes a number of items, specifically $40 billion for higher education and workforce related items. That includes increasing maximum Pell Grant awards, allowing DACA individuals to be eligible for financial aid, approximately $500 million for completion grants, a number of other items. Certainly, I'm happy to share with all of you the specific lists there. The Senate still needs to take up the legislation. There are a couple of areas that most expect the Senate to push back on, including paid leave, additional Medicare benefits, and also items related to anything on immigration. And so again, those negotiations continue to happen at the federal level. And then lastly, I just want to bring to everyone's attention a report that was released at the end of last week. This has not been on my report. There's not been a lot of traction on this. Approximately a year ago, the legislature, specifically the Assembly Speaker, announced the creation of a task force on racial disparities, and 2 subcommittees spun off of that larger committee. One was specific to education and economic development, chaired by Representative Bob Whitkey from the Racine area. It included other legislators as well as members of the public. The scope of this committee in general was rather broad, but they have had a number of meetings over the last 12 months or so, and they've made some initial recommendations. I have yet to see anything drafted into legislation. As I've indicated before, the legislative session is coming to an end here, but I want to very briefly just highlight for all of you areas that they're recommending to look more closely at, specific to higher education access for students of color. They want to focus on how better to improve outreach efforts intended to inform students of color about existing programs to earn post-secondary credits. So that would be something like early college credit program, et cetera. The committee is also recommending looking at incentives for high school teachers to obtain credentials to teach concurrent enrollment courses for post-secondary credit, specifically looking at teachers in schools with large populations of students of color. Also looking at ways to improve transfer of credits between the technical college system and the UW system as an effort to reduce overall costs for students. And then as well, they want to look at the 5 largest school districts in the state. So that would be Racine, Milwaukee, Madison, Kenosha, and Green Bay, looking at ways to get them to implement percentage goals for students participating in youth apprenticeship programs. And specifically encourage more utilization of apprenticeship opportunities by students of color. And then lastly, the committee is encouraging and looking at ways to facilitate FAFSA through, training for both families and students, just general process of FAFSA. So quickly, just wanted to provide that update. Again, I have not seen legislative language. Certainly I can provide some more feedback on this task force and what I think may result of it. But certainly just given the conversation we've had this evening already, these are potentially areas of interest for us to look at more detail when it becomes available. There were some representatives from technical colleges, as well as a CISA and a school district on the committee. But again, I think the scope was rather large, and they've had to focus on a couple of items that would get as much support as possible coming out of the committee. With that, I will end my report, and if there are any questions, happy to answer.
Rami, I have a question regarding that. Since when they're going to be in session again, and if we haven't heard anything yet, as you just said, related to that, when might you anticipate hearing something coming out of that then?
So the chair of the committee released the recommendations last week, did a press conference. I plan on following up with him after the holiday, as well as the speaker's office, to determine what they might be looking at. I think it's a fair assessment to say that if items include additional spending, even if the state does have money that they could spend, that might be a challenge to get through yet this session. We're probably looking at adjournment in March. And so it will just depend on the costs and how they're funded. We also know that just politics being what they are, there are some challenges just between the 2 houses, as well as getting legislation signed. So I think there are a number of hurdles to see any sort of robust package moving forward. I think what could potentially happen is the Assembly moves some of the legislation. The Senate was not part of this process. This was an Assembly task force, so it was not a joint task force. So I think without that Senate buy-in, that's also a hurdle potentially, where you're only getting stuff through one house. The subcommittee, there were 2 subcommittees. One was on law enforcement related issues. Some of those items have moved, some have not. So, I think that there could be a number of challenges to seeing a large, robust package with a lot of, quantity in it, if you will, get through by March, but perhaps a few smaller items could pass, particularly if there are not dollars attached to it, which unfortunately sometimes means a mandate on K-12 education and technical colleges and the UW system in some cases.
Thank you. Anybody else with questions for Amy? All right, thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you.
Now we will move back to our board monitoring and item B, which is the academic multi-year plan, and Dr. Dakwar.
Well, thank you so much. And it is my pleasure actually to present to you briefly. Wanted to remind the board that we did share the actual plan, the comprehensive plan with them, along with an executive summary by our EVP. I'd like to go over some highlights. I know many of you have read it and we'd be more than happy to address any questions that you may have. First off, I'd like to acknowledge the board and thank them for their support. This has been a very lengthy process. It took us a few months to get this together. It's the first of its kind, actually, in the history of MATC. So we're really proud of this work. Also, I'd like to thank Dr. Martin, Dr. Gonzalez de Jesus. The leadership, the support is amazing. Also, we have a leader behind all this, an architect. Bart Cannell was really, truly behind most of the work as far as the support, getting the teams together, the templates, the training, you name it, along with Cherie Hegler. The deans and their teams, the pathway teams, the faculty, local 212 leadership. It truly took a village to make it happen. So I appreciate the work, and let me tell you about the vision. The vision here is to continue to be student-centered and to put student success at the heart of everything that we do. What's our vision for that? What is the infrastructure? What's the level of support that's needed, and so on? What is the transformation that's needed for this? That's basically what you see in this plan. So in it, you will see a lot of alignment. We spent a lot of time talking to our peers, the other pillars. We have the strategic management enrollment plan. We have the facilities plan, the marketing plan. I mean, everything had to come together in one key document to really show alignment, how we can envision the future together to serve our students and our community. Also, one thing that I'd like to add is this is a living, breathing document. It's organic. This is only the beginning. We'll continue to build on it. We'll continue to innovate and improve as we continue evaluating, the plan. Behind it, you will see very solid data-driven approach. I mean, data drove most of what you see in the plan. So we have the RNL data, we have the EMSI, we have the iPads, the IR reports, our own kind of, custom reports and so on. So data heavy all the way, and we'll be glad to share any data at any point in time. In addition to that, we took into account the technology infrastructure. I mean, with online and conversion and hybrid and so on, it's quite an opportunity for us to really envision almost a different future for our students and community. Flexible ways to offer our, classes, instruction, not only that, but also our services. I'm happy to let you know that even our face-to-face students, they always take the time to take advantage of our virtual services. It's available, it's expanded, it's comprehensive, and it's efficient. So we have much of that. Now, as far as the strategic action steps that we will be taking is to optimize the quality of instruction and the services that we provide. You will see expanded services in so many ways, in more efficient ways as well. As we talk about expanded services, I want to make sure that also the plan included expanded services to support our faculty and staff. So through the efforts of the 21st century, the online infrastructure, we are trying to support our faculty in so many ways as well to meet the needs of the students and the programs. Also, we are looking into key initiatives, including the bilingual, OER. This is the open education resource. We want to make sure that our students have access to education, in maybe more affordable ways. And Dr. Martin has this as one of her goals, and we're so happy to work on this goal because it's really great news for the community and for the students as well. And we're seeing a lot of improvements as well. Also, in addition to this, we asked the deans to really kind of envision the future in a big way, innovate. And many of them came back and they wanted to establish some innovation centers. And this includes the Green Pact Center for Green Occupations and Urban Agriculture. We have the Entrepreneurship Excellence Center. We have the Health Innovation Center, the STEM Center. The list goes on and on and on. So with that, I'm really proud to say that we're looking into key initiatives to build these innovation centers to serve our students in so many ways to make sure that they are highly engaged and immersed in the learning process. With that also, we had to take a very close look at the programs that are thriving and those that are not doing as well. We took very close look at every single level within every pathway at every single program. So we have certain areas and we recognize the growth and we want to do more of, and we want to make sure that we're meeting our employers' needs. We want to make sure that we are where the growth and the demand is. At the same time, there's some declining programs. What do? This is really not kind of canceling, deleting, but it's really resource allocation. Where we have less demand, there's the economy is telling us and the employers are telling us that there isn't really as many opportunities and so on. It is an opportunity for us here at MATC to reallocate the resources and invest in the growth programs. I have a list, it's very long, but I'm gonna give you some idea. So some of the kind of thriving, growing programs and so on, we asked every dean to identify the top 2 or 3. We have very comprehensive data, but just kind of in a nutshell, like the graphic design, the audio production, the culinary arts, the business management, accounting, human resources, nursing is huge. It's expanding in so many big ways. Dental hygiene, practical nursing, welding, IT is growing in big ways as well. Some areas in the STEM, electronic engineering, funeral services, by the way, we saw almost an 80% increase. Paramedic, over 50% increase. Esthetician, 40% increase. I don't want to bore you with the details, but growth in some areas backed up by data. Now, as far as lowest enrollments, I would like to stress 2 things. The first one is we are making sure that we have a process and a system in place to address any program before we sunset it, meaning to say we want to be absolutely sure. We want to work with marketing, we want to work with recruitment, and we want to see if we can grow it. If all fails, then we really have to look into sunsetting the program. So we need to exhaust all of our options before we come to that conclusion. And this is a faculty-driven process, and they're engaged in the process as well. Some of the programs, photography, music occupations, the e-business is not doing as well. We have reading analysis, we have central service technician, we have automated building services and systems, and then we have a couple of other programs. Again, let me stress this. We're saying that, we're also talking to workforce solutions. Can we repackage the program? Can we offer them in more efficient ways, more affordable ways, and so on? But these are some of the programs that are declining at this time. With that said, there's a lot to share with you, to be honest with you, but I'd like to really give you a chance and opportunity to ask any questions at this time.
Somebody we know. Hi, Annie.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. You still working?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Please mute your phone unless you have any question. We have some, yep. Or your mics, I'm sorry. Any questions for me or Barb? And the deans are with us in case you have any technical specific questions about their programs.
Yes, I appreciated getting the information in advance. Again, that's helpful to process that, especially, we get to a part of the agenda and we wanted to make sure that, I think as Director Baker has said before, that we aren't, giving any less attention to anything. So it does help when there is such a variety of topics on the agenda to be able to get some of those in advance and come prepared. So
absolutely.
I'm not seeing any virtual or physical hands being raised, so I'm assuming that we are all good with what was prepared in advance, and it was pretty straightforward as presented. So
well, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you to you and your team, and happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
Next, we have the annual non-construction procurement report, and Jeff Hollow will be presenting that, or introducing others who will be presenting. I see Laura Moore jumping on.
Yes, I would like to introduce Laura Moore, our procurement manager, and she will be presenting the information. The information was sent out in advance, so it will be a brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, and hello to everybody attending this tonight. I'm going to go over the report, but as he said, you had already received the report in advance, so I'm going to just highlight a couple of the areas that were reported. The first portion of this report will be on the required annual reporting from WTCS, which is a review of the vendor spend in 2021 overall. And the second portion will be the voluntary reporting of hub spends that MATC has every year. So if you want to follow along on the report, if you have it in front of you, we're going to skip right to page number 3, where we're going to review the WTCS requirements. At the end of each fiscal year, all colleges must compile a report of all spend for that year by vendor. Each vendor with a spend of over $50,000 is reviewed for proper competitive processes, and also to see if, after multiple purchases brought it to that threshold, if it would make sense for us to go out for a competitive process for it. So if, we bought gloves 100 different times and we spend over $50,000, it would probably make sense for us to go out and get some quotes or do a bid to see if we could get better pricing overall. Also, I put together like vendors that have higher spend and say, okay, we bought gloves from 10 different vendors. What if we compressed that into just one vendor and we did a competitive process and got better pricing overall? So this is really just a way for us to look in to see how we can save some more money for the college and what makes sense. In addition to my own report having to review all of these, I also share this report with the WTCS Purchasing Consortium, where they then also take all 16 different colleges, and then they go over and decide if we could put together our different purchases. So if all 16 colleges are spending $15,000 with one vendor, and that would be over $240,000, it would make sense for the consortium to go out and do a competitive process for that. So my recommendations after doing this report is that we review our waste management. We did have that under a contract in the past, but that contract has expired. And because of using it, obviously waste management at 4 different colleges or 4 different locations, we're going to need to have some kind of contract for that. And then also I was looking at phone services because we buy phone services from multiple vendors and we buy some of the same services from multiple vendors. So it makes sense for me to go back and look at all of these and figure out exactly what we're purchasing to see if maybe we could bundle some of those together and then maybe get even better pricing. Because we're certainly not against going out and asking, hey, I know you have a state contract for that, but could you give me better pricing? Because very oftentimes they will. So moving on to page 5, which is, the non-construction hub spend percentage, hub spend for the year. Although this isn't required by WTCS, every year purchasing provides these numbers. And it includes not only the prior year, but we also include the 4 years before that. So we can see if there's any trends going on, any growth, et cetera. I'm happy to report that again, we increased our vendor hub spend over last year. And so we're going in the right direction. And our goal moving forward is to increase our hub dollars by 10% each year. So each year we should be growing by 10% more. So next year, our goal will be $2,196,067. So going to the next page, we also like to, when we go over this spend, say, how did we get here? What are we doing to try to increase our hub spend? And this has a list of the different things that are part of our system. But I'd like to talk specifically about the quarterly vendor listening sessions. Those have gone really well, and we're getting more people attending those than we had at the very beginning. We did play with the time frame that we do those. It used to be during the day, but then we thought a lot of these smaller hub vendors are going to be people that are a small business. They may not have time to stop in the middle of the day. So we have them more in the evening, like around 4 or 5 o'clock. So that has been very helpful. The WPS partnership, I've received more feedback from that when I have participated in those events. what I do as MATC, I go and say, hey, come and do business with MATC. This is what you need to do. And I review our competitive process. I've had more people call me after that and lots of people showing interest in doing business with MATC. So that outreach has been really helpful. We've also been more aggressive in requiring people or an initiator who wants to make a purchase over $15,000 that the initiator has to provide a minority vendor or a hub vendor as one of the people that we would directly solicit. We just want to make sure that everybody is a part of this process. So just getting people thinking about how they can participate. And also, hub spend training is now part of all purchasing related training. If you want to learn how to use a P card, I'm going to tell you about hub spend. If you want to learn how to enter an EPR, I'm going to tell you about hub spend. This is something that just needs to be communicated and make it a part of our everyday thought process. So this is what we're doing now, but what are we going to do in the future? You go to the next page, please. When I think about what we're going to do in the future, this is something that I think about all the time, because you'd never want to just sit on your laurels. You always want to grow. And I started asking different people within the college, I'm like, what would you do? How do you see yourself as part of being able to contribute to this? And I was surprised at how many people are like, well, isn't that just purchasing? Don't you decide who the vendors are? With over 170 degree, diploma, and certificate programs at MATC, there's a lot of different things that get purchased. No one person could be a specialist in all of that. So a lot of the purchasing power is placed in the hands of the initiators, or the people who want to make those purchases. That's why MATC has a decentralized purchasing program. So, for example, from $0 to $14,999, an initiator can choose any vendor that they want. From $15,000 to $24,999, they only need 2 quotes, and they can choose what vendors will be asked to provide those 2 quotes. $25 to $49.99, 3 quotes. Again, the initiator gets to choose who will be asked to provide quotes. So the power is in the hands of the initiator. We have to get them thinking about including minority or hub vendors as just a part of their overall thought process. Anything over $50,000, it does have to be publicly posted, but we can also directly solicit vendors. And I always ask each initiator to provide 3, and one of those should always be a hub vendor. So I was thrilled when Dr. Martin adopted increasing diverse spend as one of her goals this year, because that really put a spotlight on diverse spend, and that it's not just purchasing that makes these decisions, it's something that we all do. So you can see by my list of goals that most of my goals are partnering with different areas within the college and making it so that they think of hub spend as something that they can contribute to. I want to make diversity as much a part of the decision-making process in purchasing as we do with student enrollment and hiring of staff. And you can see in some of these, in addition to partnering with people in there, I have some kind of different ideas in there, like no longer requiring official certification to be included in the hub spend and allow vendors to self-identify hub status. I know that Madison College does this. And the question that was raised, are we supporting certification programs or hub vendors? Because we're not part of the state and we can't say we will give a specific amount of money to my hub vendors, and so therefore they're not getting any of the perks of being certified. Why should we require them to do that? Also, one other thing that, I mean, obviously this would require additional participation from leadership, and just something to think about. What if we required every person or every department to make at least 2 purchases with a new hub vendor every year? It's just trying to think of ways to get people involved and make it so that they have ownership and want to participate this, and again, make it part of their decision-making process every day when they're making a purchase. Does anyone have any questions?
Not seeing any hands up.
You guys are really quiet today.
Well, I think everybody did their homework, so we're going to count on that since we did get information in advance. And so when things are pretty straightforward. So thank you, Laura, and thank you, Jeff, who I see has already left our spotlight screen. So we are now moving on to our construction hub spend, which Ginny Rothy is, or Janice and Ginny, both of them, they keep popping up here, will be presenting that information.
Yeah, I'd turn it over to Ginny Rothy, who oversees this area. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you and good evening. Yes, my name is Ginny Rothy. I'm the Director of Facilities Planning, Sustainability, and Construction. And similar to the purchasing office, we do at this point every year report on our historically underutilized business spend for the construction dollars that we procure every year as well. So in your board agenda, you were presented with a report on construction hub spend. So while the percentages overall are larger than the non-construction spend at the college, we have been, unlike non-construction spend, challenged this year and last year on maintaining our hub percentages. So I'm going to first address some of the challenges that we've had in these areas this past year in particular, focusing on this past year, and then I will be talking to some specific and additional measures and interventions that we've been taking in this area. So starting with the numbers, we do have an internal departmental goal of an 18% historically underutilized business spend in construction dollars every year. We do state that goal and have for decades on our public construction bids. We did at the mid-year point this year, we were trending exactly at the 18% goal. And then the second half of the year was what caused our overall average to be 15%. So we do continue to see a few challenges in our process and our situation here at MATC with hub spend in construction. This year, you can see our total spend was lower than the year previous, which gave us fewer projects to work with when it comes to hub percentages that were available for our reporting. We also do tally our hub percentage each year based on the actual pay applications that come in during that period of time during this fiscal year. So while we have made many improvements that I'll highlight in a moment to outgoing bids that we send out each month, we do have pay applications that arrive each month on projects that sometimes are 2 years old, sometimes 3 years old. So those initial bids were let and awarded several years ago. So we are still kind of, I would say, cleaning up our process and still clearing off our books from several large projects that were let several years ago. So that is one of our challenges, that even though we have taken several steps in improving our hub participation, we still are waiting to see some of those numbers reflected in the actual spend that we have. So we have done an analysis of the initial hub participation reports that we receive and that we require contractors to present before the board awards a contract. And we have been taking several steps this past year in participating and intervening with those contractors when we do receive initial hub reports that fall below our hub percentage goal. We have been working directly with those contractors to require a list of subcontractors that they have reached out to that are historically underutilized businesses, the minority businesses, women-owned businesses, disadvantaged businesses that they have solicited a bid from. So some of our major spend this past year where we fell short were with two major projects. One was with fire protection. We did require that contractor to demonstrate the efforts that they had made to reach out to historically underutilized businesses, and they did have a list of 8 subcontractors that they had solicited bids from. One of them in the sprinkler fitting area, which was the major portion of that spend, and they did not receive a hub bid back from that firm. So that's just an example of some of the things that we are doing and some of the challenges that we have if there's not a minority firm that has put a bid in, even if solicited, and we have a major amount of bid in that particular construction division, our numbers are falling short in those areas. So that particular fire protection bid was also one that was 3 years old. It was awarded 3 years ago. So like I said, we are continuing to find challenges in attracting some of the hub firms to our bids as well. As I mentioned, sometimes they don't give a bid even when they are directly solicited. We do have statutory limitations on the size of our bids. You all are quite aware that we bond $1.5 million every month. And that is the limit of an individual contractor's spend. That is a statutory requirement with a few caveats we can add on in a few situations with grants and gifts and a few other areas. But because of that, the size of our bids is a factor in attracting some of these historically underutilized businesses. But besides that, on the board agenda, we did highlight some of the additional measures that we have put in place this past year in particular to attract historically underutilized businesses to our construction projects. Most notably, we did start what will be an annual open house for contractors that is held in January. We had great attendance last year with more than 50 different contractors represented on that call. We are particularly reaching out with information on how to receive information about what bids we have upcoming, how to bid on our projects, and partnering with partners like the Wisconsin Supplier Diversity Network to get the resources that are available to general contractors on which subcontractors in our area are available in different divisions. So we continue to have this at the top and forefront of our efforts in the construction services area, and we will continue to work on what we have increased this year to a 20% goal. We have looked at the bids that have come in the first 2 quarters of this fiscal year, and we are trending at about 22% for the bids that have been awarded for hub participation at the first half of this year. But again, those pay applications that come in are what we record our percentages on. So it will take a little while for those dollars to change the percentages and change the trend of what we're looking at. But we are continuing to take measures in this regard. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
We have 2 more reports that we were going through. Our next one is by Jeff Hollow on the quarterly OPEB, the other post-employment benefit and FCC trust report. So Jeff, can you share with us?
Yes, I can. This also was sent out in advance. I don't know about this. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Scroll down. There we go. So this is showing the FCC Spectrum Trust portfolio. Left-hand side shows the asset allocation numerically and also graphically. And then the right side is the performance summary. You can see in the in the third quarter, that the investment return was negative. The blue is the benchmark, the gray or the brownish is the actual MATC performance. And if you look at the quarter, the year, the 3 years, and since inception, MATC has beat the benchmark. One comment that I would like to make is if you look at the so at the end of the third quarter, September 30th, the ending market value you can see is $111,945,909. As of yesterday, so the market has gone up since has trended upwards since the end of the third quarter. The value of that trust is $117 million as of yesterday's close. You can scroll up, please. So the OPEB trust, same thing, left-hand side, the asset allocation. And then on the right-hand side, same thing. We can see that for the quarter, we had a negative return. And you can see the total ending market value was $48,949,858. As of yesterday's close, that value was $51.5 million. And since I'll pause, if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay.
I do not see any. People are pretty quiet tonight, Jeff, so you're
Yep.
getting up pretty easy.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we have, I think, Janice will be introducing Dr. Veal, I believe, under our last report under health and safety update and COVID risk mitigation strategies.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Dr. Josie Veal, who's our public health advisor, and Chris Ducato is also on the call to answer any other questions. She's kind of overseeing the health and safety pieces as well. So go ahead, Dr. Veal.
Good evening, Board of Directors. It should be a presentation for tonight. While it's coming up, I'll go ahead and get started. For our COVID cases during the week of November 16th through November 22nd, there were 11 reported cases on campus. For the month of November, thus far, 22 cases. And then cumulative cases for this semester, we're currently at 161 cases reported on campus. Next slide, please. Our updates are that our mandatory testing for unvaccinated employees will begin the week of December 6th. Employees with accommodations will be provided an opportunity to test on campus at either the downtown campus or the Oak Creek campus on either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. We also have worked with our Human Resources Director Bonds to develop the accountability measures around completion of employee testing. So the communication will be sent out to employees, and they have received the first communication, just letting them know that their accommodations have been reviewed and the status of their accommodations. For our MATC employees, we have utilized Viewpoint to upload or to track vaccination status. We will roll out in the month of December the opportunity for employees to upload their booster doses. So employees who have received those booster doses, we know that boosters are now eligible for anyone 18 or older. We will request that this information is uploaded so we can then essentially continue to assess our level of vaccination or the status on campus. And last but not least, we know that the OSHA emergency temporary standard was released. At this time, MATC is not subject to those guidelines. However, we do continue to review those guidelines to ensure that we're developing steps that align or mirror some of the actions requested, as well as work with our other larger community networks, either in higher education or our networks within the technical colleges to ensure that we're using best practices around COVID safety. Next slide, please. We continue to have our vaccine clinics on campus. Our final clinic for this semester will be on November 30th. It continues to be open to students as well as employees, as well as the community, their families and friends. Right now, when we look at our vaccination rate, we had a little bit of an uptake. We're at 83% vaccination among our employees. That's as of November 18th. Any of the employees who either decline vaccination, they can change their status at any time. That is an opportunity, as well as our accommodations. 68 accommodations were reviewed, and then you can see just a breakdown of those accommodations. The majority of the individuals who were denied is just the paperwork that they submitted. So we'll continue to work with those employees as needed to make sure that they have the opportunity to upload the correct documentation. And process records just means that some records need to be reviewed, and some records, those individuals receive partial doses of a 2-dose vaccine series. Next slide, please. For our students, much like with our employees, we did extend the deadline date to upload their status and Viewpoint. I want to make sure that I acknowledge Dr. Nadine Gonzalez, Dr. Jeff Jans, Dean Burrows and his team, Eric Zemes, as well as Local 212. So these teams respectively developed, as well as marketing, developed a very intensive engagement plan for students. There's more incentives available for students who choose to become vaccinated. So in addition to us continuing with Campus Cash, there's significant other incentives that are available to students as a result of the work of these teams. So I did want to acknowledge those teams and thank them for the work and time and energy they put into incentivizing some of the vaccination opportunities for our students. So as of November 18th, we have about 1,380 students who are vaccinated. 315 have records in review to be processed. Again, once we know our vaccination rate, the health and safety team has continued in conversations about what will those next steps be around the 80%. Next slide, please. Some of the recommendations, and again, these are not new recommendations, but again, I think once we know our rate and we look at our student population, we'll be able to provide exactly what those recommendations are from the health and safety team, as well as the ones that are presented and approved by President's Council. With that, that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
I have a quick question, if I may.
Yes, Director Foley.
I think I saw one of the slides that there are 58 people who have claimed a religious exemption for the vaccination. And I'm just wondering what we are doing with those kinds of claims. That is, do we have a definition of what qualifies? Do we accept anyone's assertion that they have a religious reason for not taking the vaccination? What are we doing in that regard?
I'll let Chris respond to how the accommodations were reviewed. These individuals, any individual who does have an accommodation that is approved will complete the weekly testing, but I'll let Chris respond to the parameters around review and approval.
Sure. Good evening, members of the board. So to answer your question, Director Foley, the legal standard is a sincerely held religious belief. So the religious accommodation form that we created essentially requires employees to disclose not necessarily their religion, but what the belief system is, and then how the vaccination would not comport with that religious belief. So those are reviewed in detail, and then they are approved. As Josie said, the 7 that we did not approve, namely, were not approved because they either didn't submit the form or they submitted just an affidavit attesting to their religious beliefs. So we are requiring the appropriate documentation and reviewing those individually. So we are requiring the correlation between what the belief system is and what the objection to the vaccine is.
Thank you.
I have one question. And I don't know if this is for, I don't know which person to answer, but our students, I thought that I didn't write it down. I think the number was 1,500 something who had said that they were vaccinated. What's the universe there? So what's the number we're trying to hit with our students?
Sure. So we have about 1,300 vaccinated. When I worked with IR and Dr. Nadine, we established the head count based on November 1st deadline. So our total head count is 9,241 students.
So our goal is somewhere around 7,000, 7,200 students, something like that. Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions for Dr. Veal or Kristen or anybody else here related to our mitigation strategies? It is a very quiet group tonight. So thank you both for that information, and happy Thanksgiving to both of you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
We are on to new business. Does anybody have any new business? Okay, under our future events and announcements, both of these were mentioned under my report, but just a reminder that our next board meeting, since it does come a week earlier than we typically have, is December 14th at 4 p.m. We will keep you updated whether or not that is in person or virtual. We are hoping for in person, a couple factors that will play into that, so please stay tuned for that. And then later that week on Friday, we will be holding the winter commencement in person at 5 Surf Forum. And I know if you are attending, Gwen has been reaching out and getting details and providing you all of that. So hopefully I will see some of you in person there, if not on the 14th. So those are our announcements that we have at this point. I will be reaching out to board members, as I said before, about think about that winter retreat, that January retreat topic. I threw out a couple ideas that we might want to do a deep dive into. And so think about that, but I'll be reaching out so we can sort of get that planned and allow staff to a time to pull together information that would be very helpful for us to dig into at that point. So if there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, I'm not going to ask for discussion, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
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 I suppose I need to ask if anybody is opposed. Thank you. We are adjourned, and I hope everybody enjoys the holiday week that you have ahead.